When my daughter married the man of her dreams, I thought I'd gained a son. But soon her calls grew shorter, her visits stopped, and her eyes turned colder. I kept asking myself, what could make a daughter forget the mother who raised her alone? The day of their wedding still plays in my mind like an old film. The garden shimmered under soft lights, and my daughter, Lily, looked radiant in her ivory gown. I remember clutching my small purse, feeling out of place among his polished, elegant family. His mother greeted me with a smile that never reached her eyes. "You must be Elaine," she'd said, her tone sweet but sharp enough to cut. That was the first time I felt the quiet wall forming between us. When the ceremony ended, Lily hugged me tightly, her perfume familiar and comforting. "You'll always be my home, Mom," she whispered. I believed her. I had raised her alone after her father's death, working long nights at the diner to give her every chance at life. Seeing her marry a wealthy man named Ethan felt like all my sacrifices had been worth it. But I couldn't ignore how his family looked at me, as though I didn't belong in their polished world. After the honeymoon, Lily's visits became rare. At first, I blamed her new schedule, the city traffic, her busy life as a wife. I left her cheerful voicemails, sent pictures of the garden she'd planted with me, and waited for replies that never came. When she finally did call, her voice was distant, formal, as if speaking to a stranger. "Ethan thinks it's best if we keep some space, Mom," she said softly. My heart sank. "Space from me?" I asked. "You're my only family," she just sighed. "Please don't make this harder." Weeks turned into months. I watched birthdays pass in silence, holidays without invitations, and a mailbox that only filled with bills. Neighbors would ask about Lily, and I'd smile, pretending she was fine, pretending we still spoke every day. But at night, I'd sit by the kitchen window, staring at her childhood room, still painted the pale yellow she loved, wondering what I'd done wrong. I kept replaying her wedding, the cold smile of Ethan's mother, the way he'd kept his hand on Lily's shoulder like a silent claim. One morning, I received a letter with a silver-embossed crest. It was from Ethan's law firm. For a second, I panicked. Had something happened to her? But when I opened it, it wasn't tragedy. It was a notice. My daughter had changed her last name officially, removing mine from all documentation, including the family trust I had set up years ago. I stared at the paper, trembling. It wasn't about the money. It was what it symbolized. A clean erasure of me. I tried calling her again, but this time, my number went straight to voicemail. I wrote her letters instead, long ones, the kind mothers write when words aren't enough. I told her about the garden, about the neighbors asking for her, about the ache that never left my chest. Weeks later, a small envelope came in return. No return address, just a short message in her handwriting. "Mom, please stop reaching out. It's for the best. Nothing else. No love, no explanation. Just distance wrapped in ink." I tried to move on. I joined the church knitting circle, volunteered at the shelter, kept myself busy. But silence has a way of seeping into your bones. Every time I saw a young woman call her mother, I felt something inside me tighten. One night, while sorting through old photos, I came across a picture of Lily as a child, missing teeth, wearing a hand-sewn dress. Her smile was pure sunlight. I broke down, clutching the photo to my chest. That was the moment I decided to see her in person. I took a bus to the city early one Saturday. I knew where she lived, a tall glass building overlooking the park. The doorman looked me up and down, his expression professional but guarded. "I'm here to see Mrs. Ethan Calloway," I said, trying to steady my voice. He picked up the phone, murmured something, then looked back at me. "I'm sorry, ma'am, Mrs. Calloway isn't expecting visitors." I tried again, pleading. "Please, I'm her mother." His eyes softened for a second, but his words didn't. "I'm truly sorry. She's asked us not to let anyone up without permission." I walked away slowly, my hands shaking. Outside, the city moved on, cars honking, people laughing, couples walking hand in hand. I sat on a bench across the street, staring at the building's mirrored windows, wondering which one hid my daughter's face. Hours passed before I saw her. She stepped out of a black car, wearing sunglasses and a silk scarf. For a second, I thought she'd see me. But Ethan appeared beside her, his arm wrapping around her waist possessively. She looked up at him and smiled, a practiced smile, elegant, distant. I froze. That wasn't my daughter anymore. Or maybe it was, but buried under layers of someone else's world. I wanted to call out, to run across the street, to remind her who I was. But something in her posture stopped me. The stiffness in her shoulders, the hesitation in her step. She wasn't free. I watched as Ethan whispered something into her ear. Her expression fell. Then as they entered the building, she glanced back. Just for a heartbeat. Her eyes met mine, confused, startled, almost afraid. Then she turned away. That single look told me more than any letter ever could. On the way home, I couldn't stop shaking. My mind raced through every possibility. What had he said to her? Why was she so afraid to speak to me? That night, I dreamt of her as a little girl again, running through the garden, laughing, calling me Mommy. When I woke, tears soaked my pillow. I realized I couldn't just wait anymore. Something was deeply wrong. And if Ethan had poisoned her against me, I needed to know why. 2 days later, I received an unexpected visit. A woman in a gray coat stood at my door, clutching her purse tightly. "Mrs. Harris?" she asked quietly. "You don't know me, but I used to work for your son-in-law." Her voice trembled as she looked over her shoulder. "I think you deserve to know what he's been telling your daughter about you." Her words froze me. My heart pounded so hard I could barely speak. "What do you mean?" I whispered. She glanced around nervously. "It's worse than you think." And in that moment, I knew my world was about to unravel. The woman's name was Claire, and her hands trembled as she stepped into my kitchen. The rain outside blurred the world into gray streaks, tapping softly against the window. I poured her tea, though neither of us touched it. She looked exhausted, her eyes darting toward the door every few seconds as if someone might be watching. "I don't have much time," she whispered. "If he finds out I came here, I could lose everything." Her voice cracked. "But I can't keep quiet anymore." I sat across from her, my palms flat on the table, trying to steady my breath. "Please," I said. "Tell me what he's done." Claire nodded, swallowing hard. "It started after the wedding. Ethan began telling everyone that you were unstable, that you had a history of mental illness, and that you'd once tried to hurt yourself and your daughter." My mouth went dry. "That's a lie," I whispered. She nodded again. "I know." But he said it so calmly, so convincingly that even his family believed him. The words hit me like shards of glass. My hands began to shake, and I gripped the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. "Why would he say something like that?" I asked. Claire hesitated. "Control. He didn't want Lily seeing you. He said you'd manipulate her emotions, that you'd embarrass him in public." Her voice softened. "He started intercepting her calls to you. He'd tell her you called in tears, saying cruel things that never happened. Slowly, he built this image of you as unstable, someone she needed to avoid." I felt my chest tighten, breath shallow and painful. Every unanswered call, every short message, every cold glance, it all began to make sense. "But why would she believe him?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. Claire looked down. "Because he made her dependent. He managed everything, her phone, her schedule, her money. He'd say it was for convenience, but really he was isolating her. That's what men like him do, Mrs. Harris. They isolate." I stared at her, stunned by the quiet conviction in her voice. The clock ticked loudly in the silence that followed. I could hear the wind outside, the faint creak of the old floor beneath us. "He's a very charming man," Claire continued. "To outsiders, he's the picture of generosity. But behind closed doors—" She stopped herself, taking a deep breath. "He's cruel. He knows exactly how to break someone without ever raising his voice. Lily wasn't cold, she was scared. Every time she spoke about you, he twisted it into guilt, said she was ungrateful, that you'd only loved her for what she could give you." I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling my heart stutter. That's not true, I whispered. I loved her before she had anything. She's my child. Claire's eyes filled with sympathy. I know, but she doesn't know what's true anymore. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The rain outside grew heavier, a low rumble of thunder echoing through the distance. It felt like the world itself was grieving with me. Finally, I asked, "Why are you telling me this now?" She hesitated. Because I overheard something last week. Ethan was meeting with his lawyer. He's trying to cut Lily out of certain assets, make her sign documents she doesn't understand. My breath caught. He's stealing from her? Claire nodded grimly. And he's using your supposed instability as justification. He's saying she inherited your emotional tendencies, that she's not fit to manage her own finances. My stomach twisted in disbelief. I could barely comprehend the cruelty of it. You need to stop him, Claire said, her eyes fierce despite her trembling. But be careful. He's powerful, and he doesn't like being challenged. Before I could respond, she stood quickly, grabbing her coat. I've already said too much. She reached for the door. Please don't tell anyone I was here. When the door closed behind her, I sat in silence, listening to the echo of her footsteps fade into the rain. My hands were trembling so badly that I had to grip the table again. The air felt heavy, thick with everything I'd just heard. My daughter hadn't abandoned me. She'd been manipulated, isolated, turned against me by a man who wanted control. The thought made my stomach churn with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I wanted to scream, to shatter every lie he'd built between us. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept pacing the kitchen, replaying every word Claire had said. My mind darted back to the day Ethan met me. His firm handshake, his perfect smile, the faint condescension in his tone when he'd said, "Lily's lucky to have a mother like you?" At the time, I thought it was a compliment. Now I saw it for what it was, a warning wrapped in politeness. He'd seen me as an obstacle even then. The rain had stopped by dawn, but inside the storm only grew louder. By morning, I had a plan. If Ethan had lied to my daughter, then I would find a way to show her the truth. But I couldn't just show up again, not with security guards turning me away. I needed proof, real proof. I went through my old documents, the letters I'd sent, the trust I'd created for her education, the receipts of everything I'd sacrificed for her future. If he painted me as unstable, I would show her the stability of every act of love I'd ever done. Still, deep inside, I feared it might not be enough. Later that day, I called the law firm whose crest had been on the letter I'd received months ago. The receptionist hesitated when I asked for Ethan's assistant. "I'm sorry, ma'am. She's no longer employed here." My heart skipped. "Claire?" I asked. The woman paused, then said quietly, "She resigned suddenly last week. No forwarding contact." My blood ran cold. I didn't know if she'd been fired or silenced, but either way, it meant one thing. Ethan knew someone had talked. That evening, I received an unmarked envelope slipped through my mail slot. Inside was a single photograph, me, sitting at the cafe near my house looking out the window. On the back, in neat handwriting, were 5 words. "Stop before you ruin her." No signature, no address, just a warning. My knees buckled and I sank into the chair. My first instinct was fear. But beneath it, something stronger began to rise. Anger. He could watch me, threaten me, try to erase me, but I wasn't going to disappear quietly. I spent the night drafting a letter to Lily, not pleading, not begging, just the truth. I wrote about her father, about the nights I stayed up sewing her dresses, about every sacrifice that had built her world. I told her I didn't want her money or her time, just her to remember who she really was. I left out Claire's name, afraid it might endanger her, but I made sure to include one sentence Ethan couldn't twist. The truth can survive silence, but love can't. The next morning, I mailed it to her building by registered post. For days, I waited, watching the mailbox like a child waiting for a miracle. No response came. Then, 1 week later, a black car stopped in front of my house. My heart raced as I peeked through the curtain. It wasn't Ethan, it was Lily. She stepped out slowly, her eyes red, her hands shaking. And for the first time in years, she was alone. When I opened the door, my breath caught in my throat. Lily stood there, her face pale, eyes swollen from crying. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The years of silence stretched between us like a wall made of glass, thin enough to see through, yet impossible to break without bleeding. I wanted to pull her into my arms, to hold her like I used to when she was small and frightened, but something in her eyes stopped me. She looked unsure, like a stranger trying to remember a familiar place. "Hi, Mom," she said softly, her voice trembling. Just hearing her call me that again made my knees weak. "Lily," I whispered, stepping closer. She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder as though afraid someone might be watching. I followed her gaze but saw only the quiet street, the black car idling by the curb. "I needed to see you," she said finally. I got your letter." My heart pounded. "I didn't know if you'd read it." She nodded, tears welling. "I read it every night this week." I gestured for her to come inside. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped over the threshold as if entering sacred ground. The air between us felt fragile, filled with words we were both too afraid to speak. I guided her to the kitchen, the same one where she used to sit doing homework while I made her cocoa. She ran her fingers along the counter, tracing invisible lines. "Everything looks the same," she said softly. "Even the smell." Her voice cracked. "I've missed that." I smiled sadly. "I've missed you too, sweetheart. More than you can imagine." She sat down, her eyes searching mine. "Mom, I don't know what's true anymore." The confession slipped from her lips like a wound opening. "Ethan told me things, terrible things. He said you hated him because he came from money, that you wanted to embarrass us, that you'd said awful things behind my back." She swallowed hard. "He told me you were unstable, that I needed to protect myself from you." Her words shook as they came out, and I could see the shame in her eyes. I didn't want to believe him, but he showed me things. Messages, voicemails, things I thought were from you. My heart clenched. "Messages?" I asked. She nodded. "They said cruel things. Accusing him, calling me ungrateful. I thought you'd lost control." She looked down, ashamed. "I blocked your number after that." My throat tightened. "Lily," I said softly, "I never sent those messages. He forged them." Her head snapped up, eyes wide. "What?" I nodded. "He had access to your phone, didn't he? He controlled what you saw, who you spoke to." She blinked, disbelief mixing with dawning horror. "He said it was for my safety," she whispered. I leaned forward, my voice trembling but firm. "He wanted to isolate you. It's what abusers do, darling. They twist love into fear. They make you doubt the people who truly care for you so you have nowhere else to turn." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Mom," she whispered, "I think you're right." Her hands trembled as she reached for her purse. "A few days ago, I found a hidden file on his laptop. It had recordings, edited ones, of supposed arguments between us." My voice but changed. I didn't understand it at first, but then I saw the file name. It said, "Insurance." The word hit me like a slap. "Insurance?" I repeated. She nodded. "He's been documenting everything. Photos, conversations, even fake receipts. He's trying to make me look incompetent, like I can't handle my own finances." Claire wasn't lying. She looked terrified now, her eyes darting toward the window. "Mom, he's watching me. I know he is." I reached across the table and took her hand. "You're safe here," I said. "He doesn't control this space." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure. The photograph, the warning note. Ethan's reach was long. She squeezed my hand tightly, her nails digging into my skin. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "If I leave, he'll destroy me. He knows things about me, about my past, about my father's inheritance. He said if I ever betrayed him, he'd make sure no one believed me." Her words cracked mid-sentence, and I saw the frightened girl beneath the polished wife she'd become. "You're not powerless, Lily," I said. "He built his power on lies, and lies crumble when the truth is spoken." She looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "Then help me, Mom, please." I nodded, though inside fear clawed at me. I didn't have wealth or influence, just love, and maybe that had to be enough. We'll start with proof, I said. Everything he's done, we'll document it. We'll talk to a lawyer who isn't his. And Lily, if you ever feel unsafe, you come here, day or night. She nodded slowly, wiping her tears. For a moment, she looked like my little girl again, the one who used to fall asleep in my lap after too many bedtime stories. I don't deserve your kindness, she whispered. After how I treated you. I shook my head. You were lost, not cruel. Love forgives what manipulation creates. The sound of a car door slamming outside made us both jump. Lily's head turned sharply toward the window. It's him, she whispered. My pulse spiked. He followed you? She stood, panic rising in her chest. He must have tracked my phone. I shouldn't have come. Before she could finish, heavy footsteps approached the door. I grabbed her wrist. Stay here, she shook her head. No, Mom, he'll twist this. A loud knock cut her off. 3 sharp raps, deliberate and cold. My blood ran cold. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and opened the door. Ethan stood there, rain still glistening on his coat, his expression calm but his eyes sharp as glass. Mrs. Harris, he said smoothly. I was worried. My wife didn't tell me she was visiting. His tone was polite, but every word carried quiet menace. Lily! He called, his smile tightening. Sweetheart, you had me concerned. She appeared behind me, trembling. Ethan, please. He raised a hand slightly, still smiling. Why don't you come home? We can talk privately. His gaze flicked toward me. Your mother seems upset. We don't want to make a scene. I stepped forward, blocking his view of her. She's not going anywhere, I said quietly. His eyes darkened, but his smile never faltered. I see. Well, I can appreciate a mother's concern. But you should be careful, Mrs. Harris. Some things can be misunderstood, especially by people who've had emotional struggles in the past. The implication hit like a blade. He was still using the same lie. I met his gaze evenly. You can lie about me all you want, Ethan, but not to her anymore. For the first time, his expression flickered, a brief crack in the calm. Then, without another word, he turned and walked toward the car. The sound of the door slamming echoed through the quiet street before the vehicle pulled away. Lily collapsed into a chair, shaking. Mom, she whispered, what have I done? I knelt beside her, taking her face in my hands. You believed a man who made you afraid to love freely. That isn't your fault. She nodded weakly, tears streaming down. I want to be free of him. I kissed her forehead gently. Then we'll make sure you are. That night, after she'd fallen asleep on the couch, I stood by the window, watching the rain return. Every flash of lightning reflected against the glass felt like a reminder. The truth had finally cracked through the darkness. But I knew this wasn't over. Men like Ethan didn't let go easily. I made myself a silent promise as I watched my daughter sleep. He had taken years from us, poisoned our bond, and fed her lies. Now it was my turn to take back everything he'd stolen. Morning came slowly, gray and heavy, as if the world itself hesitated to start the day. I hadn't slept. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried that sharp, electric stillness after a storm. Lily was still curled up on the couch, her breathing shallow but even. I stood watching her for a long moment, realizing just how fragile she looked. My daughter, the woman I had raised to be brave, was now afraid of the very life she lived. And I knew, deep down, that Ethan wouldn't stay quiet for long. By the time Lily woke up, I had already made coffee and written a short list on the back of an envelope. Lawyers, safe contacts, and one old friend, Margaret, who worked in a private investigator's office. We need proof, I said gently as she blinked awake. Real solid evidence, not just stories he can twist. She nodded slowly, her voice still groggy. I can get into his office today. He keeps files there, maybe even those recordings. I frowned. He might be watching you, Lily. You said he tracks your phone. She hesitated, then gave a small, determined nod. Then I'll leave it here. He'll think I'm still at home. That small spark of resolve in her eyes gave me hope. It reminded me of the girl she used to be, The one who once stood up for a bullied classmate, even when it made her unpopular. That spirit was still there, buried beneath fear and manipulation. "We'll do this together," I said, squeezing her hand. "He's built his web out of lies, but we'll untangle it piece by piece." Lily smiled weakly. "I don't deserve you, Mom." "You always did," I whispered. "He just made you forget." Later that day, Margaret arrived. She was older now, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes still carried that sharp, investigative glint. "You weren't kidding," she said after I explained everything. "This man sounds dangerous. I've seen types like him. Charming in public, calculating in private." She turned to Lily. "We'll start with his digital footprint. If he's been forging messages, there'll be traces, metadata, timestamps, server logs. Even deleted files leave shadows." Lily looked overwhelmed. "Can we really prove it?" Margaret smiled faintly. "Truth has fingerprints, dear. You just have to know where to look." They spent the afternoon going through old emails and backups, while I sat nearby, my heart pounding every time the phone buzzed. Around dusk, Margaret let out a low whistle. "Got something," she murmured. "Look at this." An encrypted folder on his cloud drive, labeled Legal Hold. That's lawyer language. "He's building a case file, probably a fake one." Lily leaned over her shoulder, trembling. "Open it." Margaret typed quickly, bypassing security protocols with a small flash drive she always carried. When the folder opened, Lily gasped. "Oh my God." Inside were dozens of forged documents, fake screenshots, bank statements in her name, even a psychiatric report falsely signed with my name. The room fell silent, except for the faint hum of the laptop. I felt cold all over. "He was preparing to ruin us both," I said quietly. Margaret nodded grimly. "He's smart. He's been setting this up for years. But he got sloppy. Look, these signatures don't match perfectly, and the timestamps overlap. A real forensic analyst could tear this apart." Lily covered her face, sobbing quietly. "How did I not see it? How did I let him do this?" I went to her side, wrapping my arms around her. "Because you loved him, darling. And love blinds us to the darkness we don't want to see." Before Margaret left that night, she handed me a small envelope. "This is a contact of mine, a lawyer who specializes in coercive control and digital fraud. Discreet and trustworthy." She paused at the door. "Be careful, Ellen. Men like Ethan don't go down without a fight." I nodded, my stomach heavy with dread. After she left, Lily and I sat in silence, the glow of the computer screen flickering across our faces. The evidence felt like both a weapon and a warning. Power, but dangerous power. It was almost midnight when the phone rang. I jumped, my heart leaping into my throat. Lily looked at the screen and froze. "It's him," she whispered. I shook my head, mouthing, "Don't answer." The ringing stopped, but seconds later, a new message popped up. A photo of the two of us sitting by the computer. The caption read, "I told you not to drag her into this." My blood turned to ice. "He's watching us," I whispered. Lily covered her mouth, trembling. "How does he know?" I rushed to the window, scanning the dark street. Nothing. Just shadows and silence. I locked every door and curtain before sitting back down, trying to steady my breathing. "He's bluffing," I said, though even I didn't believe it. Lily shook her head. No, he's not. There are cameras in the house. I found one last week, hidden in the clock in his office. He must have placed more. My pulse raced. "Then we have to get out, tonight." She looked terrified. "Where can we go?" "Somewhere safe. Margaret's office has security. We'll go there first. And tomorrow we'll meet that lawyer." Lily nodded shakily, already gathering her things as we packed. The house felt colder somehow, as if the walls themselves were listening. Every creak made me flinch. When we finally stepped outside, the street was eerily quiet. I held Lily's hand as we hurried toward my car, but just as I reached for the keys, a voice echoed softly from the shadows. "Going somewhere?" It was Ethan. He stepped out from behind a tree, his expression calm, almost casual. "You didn't think I'd let you walk away with my property, did you?" His eyes glinted with amusement. "Hello again, Mrs. Harris. I instinctively stepped in front of Lily. "We're done playing your games," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. He tilted his head, smiling. "You're making a mistake. Do you really think anyone will believe you over me? I have records, videos, statements." He laughed quietly. "You're not just fighting me. You're fighting perception. And I always win perception." Lily trembled behind me. "Please, Ethan, just let us go." His smile faltered slightly. "You've been talking to people, haven't you? That nosy old friend of your mother's?" "I wouldn't involve her if I were you." My hands shook, but I didn't back down. "You've underestimated the wrong woman," I said. "You think silence protects you, but it's the truth that will destroy you." For the first time, he looked unsure, a flicker of doubt behind his eyes. "Go ahead," he said coldly. "Try, but remember, Lily, every story has two sides. And I write mine very well." Then he turned and walked away, his footsteps fading into the night. We didn't wait. I pulled Lily into the car and drove until the city lights blurred into darkness. When we finally reached Margaret's office, the sky was beginning to lighten, soft gray bleeding into pink. Lily sat in silence, clutching the USB drive like a lifeline. "Mom," she whispered, "what if he's right? What if no one believes us?" I parked the car and turned to her. "Then we'll make them believe. With truth, with evidence, and with courage." She nodded slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. For the first time in years, she looked less like a victim, and more like the woman she was always meant to be. The law office was quiet when we arrived, the kind of silence that feels both safe and watchful. The young assistant who greeted us led us down a narrow hallway to a glass-walled conference room. Inside waited a man in his 60s, silver hair combed neatly back, a soft but firm expression behind his glasses. "Mrs. Harris," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Daniel Reed. Margaret told me you might come." His handshake was steady, grounding. "Let's start at the beginning," he said gently. "And take your time. The truth needs space to breathe." Lily sat beside me, her hands trembling slightly as she spoke. She told him everything: the control, the isolation, the forged messages, the threats. Her voice cracked a few times, but Daniel didn't interrupt. He simply nodded, taking careful notes, occasionally glancing up with a look that said he'd seen too many stories like this. When she finished, he leaned back, thoughtful. "This is more than emotional abuse," he said quietly. "It's digital coercion and reputational sabotage." "That's a felony if we can prove it?" Lily looked stunned. "A felony?" He nodded. "Yes, and given the forged medical documents, that adds fraud." He turned to me. "Do you have copies of the files you found?" I slid the USB across the table. "Everything's here. Margaret helped us extract it." He plugged it into his laptop, scrolling through the folders, his brows furrowing deeper with each file. "He's meticulous," he murmured. "But arrogance always leaves fingerprints." He clicked open one file labeled financial. Control plan.docx. The words inside made my stomach twist. Lists of behavioral management, strategies, schedules for communication limitations, and detailed notes on Lily's daily habits. "He documented his manipulation," Daniel said, disbelief in his tone. "This is damning," Lily's voice trembled. "He called it structure," she whispered. "Said it helped our marriage." I reached over and took her hand. "It was control, darling. He just dressed it in nice words." Daniel nodded. "I'll start preparing an affidavit. We'll need to involve law enforcement soon, but not until we secure your safety first." He looked at Lily. "Do you have access to your joint accounts?" She shook her head. "He monitors everything. Even the house title is in his name." Daniel smiled faintly. "Good thing the law has a long memory. If he used your name in forged documents, it's traceable. He's built his own noose." When we left the office, the air felt lighter somehow, fragile hope breaking through the weight of fear. But I still couldn't shake the sense that Ethan wasn't finished. That night, I stayed awake in the guest room while Lily slept in Margaret's apartment upstairs. Every sound made me flinch. A passing car, the hum of a refrigerator. I opened my old journal and wrote, "The truth is our only weapon now. And I will not stop until he's powerless." I didn't realize until later how prophetic those words would become. The next morning, Daniel called with an update. "We've got something," he said, excitement barely restrained. The metadata from his forged emails shows they originated from a proxy server linked to a marketing firm he owns. That ties the deception directly to him. My heart pounded. "What does that mean?" "It means," Daniel said, "we can build a timeline, every lie, every forged file, and prove he orchestrated it." He paused. "But we'll need Lily's testimony. That's the cornerstone." I looked over at her, still fragile but determined. "She'll do it," I said. "She's stronger than he ever believed." That afternoon, while Daniel arranged the formal complaint, Lily sat beside me in the small living room, scrolling through old photos on her phone. "Mom," she said suddenly, "look." It was a picture from 3 years ago, her and Ethan, smiling at a charity gala. But what caught my attention wasn't their smiles. It was the background. Behind them stood a familiar figure, the same man from the blurry photo I'd found in the box at home. "That's him," I whispered. "The one who delivered the warning note." Lily frowned. "You're right." "Who is he?" "I don't know," I said slowly. "But he's connected." We sent the photo to Margaret, who called back an hour later. "His name's Peter Nolan," she said. "Private security consultant. Used to work with Ethan's company, specializes in surveillance systems." My heart sank. "So he planted the cameras?" "Most likely," she said. "But here's the strange part. He quit 6 months ago. No forwarding address, no contact details. Just disappeared." A chill ran down my spine. "Then who sent that photo to my door?" Margaret hesitated. "Maybe someone who finally realized what Ethan was doing." The idea both comforted and unsettled me. By evening, Daniel called again. "Good news and bad news," he said. "Good news. The judge approved an emergency protective order for Lily. Bad news. Ethan's lawyers already filed a counterclaim, alleging emotional instability and fraud on her part." My jaw tightened. "He's moving fast." "Yes," Daniel replied. "He expected this. But he doesn't know we have the metadata yet. That's our advantage. Keep quiet for now. Let him think he's winning." I nodded. "We can do that." But inside, I felt the tension coil tighter. Silence was a weapon too, one I'd learned to use well. That night, I found Lily sitting by the window, staring at the city lights. "I used to think love meant trust," she said softly. "Now I'm not sure what it means anymore." I sat beside her. "Love isn't blind obedience, sweetheart. It's courage, the kind that faces truth even when it hurts." She smiled faintly. "I'm learning that from you." For a moment, the quiet between us felt peaceful, almost healing. But then her phone buzzed. The message was simple. "You think the law will protect you? Ask your mother about the envelope she hid." My breath caught. "What envelope?" Lily looked at me, confused. "Mom?" My hands went cold. I hadn't told anyone, not even her, about the sealed envelope I found hidden beneath my late husband's belongings months ago. It was labeled with my name, but I'd never opened it. Somehow Ethan knew. "Stay here," I said, standing quickly. "Mom, what's going on?" "Something I should have dealt with long ago." I retrieved the envelope from my dresser drawer, my heart hammering. The seal cracked easily. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a notarized document dated 15 years ago. It stated that my husband had left a trust fund in Lily's name, one Ethan had no legal claim to. My knees nearly gave out. "He's after the trust," I whispered. Lily stared, wide-eyed. "What trust?" "Your father left it for you, but I never told you. You were too young, and I thought it could wait until you were older." My voice trembled. Ethan must have found out somehow. "That's why he married you. That's why he forged those documents." The realization settled over us like ice. Lily sank into a chair, tears welling. "He used me for money. For years." I nodded slowly. Fury and sorrow tangled inside me. "But now, darling, he's given us his motive. And that's exactly what will destroy him." The next morning, the sunlight streamed through the blinds, but it didn't warm the fear still lingering in my chest. Lily and I sat at the kitchen table, the notarized trust document between us like a sword. Her hands trembled as she traced the signature of her late father. "I can't believe I never knew about this," she whispered. "He used me for years and I didn't even see it." I reached for her hand, squeezing it tightly. "That's the thing about manipulation, darling. It hides in plain sight. And men like Ethan are experts at it," Daniel called mid-morning. "We have a strategy," he said firmly. "First, we need to file an amended complaint with the Emergency Protective Order. This time, it includes evidence of the forged files, the metadata, and the trust." I could hear Lily breathing beside me, anticipation and dread mingling. "He won't see it coming," Daniel continued. "We've built a case that even his lawyers can't spin, and we'll need sworn statements from Claire and Margaret. They've already agreed to cooperate discreetly." I nodded. "Then let's do it. We can't waste any more time." The hours passed in a blur. Emails flew, documents scanned, statements typed and notarized. Lily stayed close, sometimes pacing the room, sometimes sitting quietly, staring at the ceiling as if trying to process years of deception in a single day. I watched her, a mix of pride and sorrow filling my chest. "Mom," she said finally, "I can't believe I was blind to him. I feel ashamed." I shook my head. "You were tricked, sweetheart. You loved someone you thought cared for you. That's not shame. That's survival." She nodded slowly, drawing a shaky breath. Late that afternoon, a knock sounded at the door. I froze, heart hammering. Lily glanced at me nervously. "Who is it?" I opened the door just a crack, peering out. No one. Only a small envelope had been slipped under the door. Lily bent down to pick it up. Her hands shook violently as she opened it. Inside was a single page, typed neatly, almost clinical. "Do not proceed. All actions are being watched. Any move against me will have consequences for both of you." My stomach twisted. Ethan's reach was longer than we had thought. But instead of fear, a steely determination settled over me. That night, we worked with Daniel until the office closed, crafting a precise timeline of Ethan's manipulations. Every forged email, every altered voicemail, every falsified document became a brick in the wall we were building to protect Lily and expose him. "The trust alone," Daniel said, pointing at the screen, "is enough motive. Combine it with these falsifications, and we have a clear picture of fraud and coercion." Lily watched the screen, absorbing every word, the fire of resolve lighting her eyes for the first time in years. "We'll get him," she whispered. "We have to." Sleep came fitfully. I awoke to a noise downstairs, a soft creak, too deliberate to be the house settling. My pulse jumped. I crept down the stairs, clutching a small lamp as a makeshift weapon. Nothing. Just the empty living room, chairs in their usual places, shadows dancing along the walls. I returned to Lily's room, shaking slightly. "Mom?" she murmured. I couldn't sleep either. "I keep thinking, what if he tries something before we act?" I hugged her. "He might try, but he won't succeed. Not while we have the truth." The following morning, we met Margaret at a quiet cafe near the city's edge. She had brought her laptop, showing us a series of encrypted messages she'd intercepted from Ethan's accounts. "Look at this," she said. "These are drafts of emails intended to be sent to Lily, claiming you were unstable, that you were controlling her, and even forged receipts." Lily's hand trembled as she scrolled through them. "He planned all of this?" she whispered, horrified. "Yes," Margaret said, "and he assumed no one could trace the digital trail. But arrogance is his flaw. We've got everything we need." Armed with evidence and a plan, Daniel filed the amended protective order that afternoon. I watched Lily as she signed the papers, her signature slightly shaky but resolute. "Mom," she said softly, "I feel like I'm finally taking back control." I smiled, squeezing her hand. "You are, darling. One step at a time." We left the courthouse, the city feeling less hostile somehow. The wind seemed lighter, carrying a sense of anticipation, the first taste of justice approaching. That evening, as we prepared dinner, a knock echoed through the apartment. Lily froze. "Mom, do you think it's him?" I peeked through the peephole. It wasn't Ethan, but two men in suits carrying briefcases. They introduced themselves as representatives from Ethan's law firm. "We're here to serve notice regarding the amended filing," one said. I nodded, taking the documents. They left without incident, but the message was clear. He was aware, he was planning, and he wasn't going to stop. After they left, Lily sat at the table, staring blankly at the papers. "I never imagined our lives would turn into this," she whispered. "It feels like a war." I reached across and held her hands. "It is a war, darling, but not against each other, against lies and control. And remember, truth is our strongest weapon." She looked at me, a fragile smile forming. "Then let's fight together." That night, we reviewed the documents with Daniel over the phone, reinforcing every detail, ensuring that when the time came, nothing could be twisted. Sleep finally came in the early hours. I lay awake, thinking about the years lost, the distance forced between us, and the stolen moments with Lily. But for the first time, hope began to replace fear. The seed of courage was planted in her heart, and the bond between us felt stronger than ever. The fight ahead would be long, but we had what Ethan could never destroy, the truth. And soon, it would shine so brightly, it would leave no corner for his lies to hide. The next morning brought a breakthrough. Daniel called, excitement in his voice. "We've located a financial trail that ties Ethan directly to the forged documents. Every manipulation, every email, every fraudulent claim has a traceable path. We can prove intent, and we can prove the scheme." Lily listened, eyes wide. "So, it's over?" I shook my head gently. "Not yet, darling. But it's beginning." I could see the strength returning to her posture, the light of determination in her eyes. She was no longer the frightened wife, no longer the isolated daughter. She was ready to reclaim her life. The morning air was sharp and electric as we walked into the law office, Lily clutching my hand like it was a lifeline. She had barely slept, haunted by the fear that Ethan might retaliate before we had the chance to act. I felt a mixture of dread and determination pulsing through me. Every step toward the building felt like walking into a storm, but this time, we had the wind at our backs. Evidence, truth, and the courage we'd rebuilt together. Daniel greeted us with a calm smile, the kind that made you feel both safe and unstoppable. "Today, we begin exposing everything," he said simply. Inside the office, Daniel arranged the evidence on the conference table. Metadata logs, forged emails, manipulated voicemails, financial records, and the notarized trust document. The sheer weight of it made my stomach churn. "This will be enough," he said. "Ethan won't be able to argue against it. But we need him to underestimate us first. We present the pieces subtly, then let the truth speak for itself." Lily watched every file, absorbing the weight of years of deception and manipulation. Her face was pale, but there was a fire in her eyes, a spark that no fear could extinguish. By late morning, Daniel had drafted a detailed report for the court, outlining every act of coercion, fraud, and manipulation Ethan had committed. Lily signed each page, her hands steady now, no longer trembling. "This is us taking back control," I whispered. She looked up, her eyes glistening with tears of relief and anger. "He thought he could erase us. But we're here," she said softly. I nodded. "And we're stronger together. He can't touch what's real." The words settled over us like armor. For the first time, I felt we were no longer running. We were fighting, and victory felt possible. That afternoon, Daniel called to inform us that Ethan's legal team had received the amended filing. "He's aware now," he said. "Expect pushback. Expect intimidation? But he won't anticipate our evidence. Not all of it." I looked at Lily. "This is it. The moment where truth meets lies." "Be ready," she nodded, swallowing hard, her jaw firm. "I am. No more hiding. No more pretending." We spent the rest of the day preparing for any possible encounter, rehearsing statements, reviewing timelines, and mentally bracing ourselves for confrontation. Every detail mattered. Every misstep could give him an edge. That evening, I heard a faint tapping on the window. My heart leapt. Lily froze. I slowly approached and peeked outside. It was a note, carefully folded and pinned with a small rock. I brought it inside, unfolding it with caution. It read simply, "Stop now, or everything you love will be destroyed." The handwriting was unmistakably Ethan's. My stomach twisted, but the fear was now tempered with fury. He had underestimated us. We weren't children anymore. We had proof, allies, and courage, and we would not be intimidated. The next day, Daniel coordinated with the court to schedule an emergency hearing to review the protective order and the evidence. We arrived early, the courthouse buzzing with officials and lawyers. Yet I felt a surreal calm. Lily walked beside me, tall and resolute. "Mom," she whispered, "I feel ready." I squeezed her hand. "You are. And I'm right here with you. We'll face this together." The doors opened and we stepped inside. Every sound, the shuffle of papers, the echo of footsteps, heightened the tension. Ethan would be here soon, and the truth was about to collide with his lies. Ethan arrived shortly after, flanked by 2 lawyers. His polished smile barely masked the tension in his eyes. He greeted the judge with a calm, practiced demeanor, but the moment he saw the USB and documents on our side of the table, the flicker of doubt crossed his face. Lily's name was called first. She stood steady, though her hands trembled slightly. I watched, heart in my throat, as she began to speak, clearly, firmly, recounting every manipulation, every forged message, every attempt to isolate and control her. The courtroom was silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. When my turn came, I spoke softly but with unwavering clarity. "I am Lily's mother," I said. "I love her. I have always loved her. For years, a man I trusted manipulated, lied, and attempted to erase me from her life. These documents are proof. Not stories. Not claims. Truth. And truth cannot be silenced." Ethan's face shifted slightly, his composure cracking for a brief moment. He leaned back in his chair, silent, as the judge reviewed the documents, eyes narrowing. Lily's testimony, combined with the evidence, left a trail of undeniable manipulation. By mid-afternoon, the judge called for a recess to review the evidence more thoroughly. Ethan retreated to a side room, speaking in hushed, urgent tones with his lawyers. I didn't hear the words, but his tension was palpable. Outside the courtroom, Lily and I waited, hands intertwined. She looked at me, tears glistening. "Mom, I can't believe it's finally happening." I hugged her gently. "We never stopped believing. And now he will face the consequences of the lies he built for so long." We both knew this was only the beginning. But it was the first public crack in his carefully constructed facade. The recess felt endless, every minute stretching like hours. Then the bailiff returned, motioning for both sides to re-enter. The courtroom filled again. Ethan looked calmer now, but his eyes darted nervously toward the table where our evidence lay. The judge began speaking, referencing the protective order, the amendments, and the documents we submitted. "The court recognizes substantial evidence of manipulation and potential fraud," the judge said. Ethan shifted uneasily, his control waning under the weight of truth. "Further review and testimony will be required, but interim measures are granted to ensure safety and protection." Relief flooded through me. After the hearing, outside the courthouse, we finally exhaled. Lily hugged me tightly, whispering, "I feel free, like I can finally breathe." I held her close, feeling her warmth, her resolve, and her restored trust. "You are free," I whispered back, "and he cannot take that from you anymore." For the first time in years, we weren't running. We weren't hiding. The lies had been exposed, and though the battle wasn't over, the scales had finally begun to tip in our favor. That evening, we returned to Margaret's office to debrief and plan the next steps. Every document, every testimony, every piece of evidence had to be fortified before the next court date. Daniel smiled at us, eyes gleaming with cautious optimism. "You've already done the hardest part, standing up and telling the truth," he said. "Now we'll make sure it cannot be ignored." Lily looked at me, determination shining through her tears. "Mom, We're really going to win." I nodded, holding her hand. "Together, darling. Always together." The night settled over the city as we left the office, a soft breeze carrying the scent of rain from earlier in the day. I thought about how far we had come, from fear, isolation, and lies to strength, courage, and undeniable truth. Ethan had underestimated the bond between a mother and daughter, and the resilience born of love. Tomorrow we would continue the fight, and soon justice would not just be a hope, it would be reality. And finally, the life that had been stolen from Lily would begin to return to her. The following morning, the city felt different, almost expectant, as if it knew the battle we had begun was far from over. Lily and I arrived at Margaret's office early, our footsteps echoing in the quiet hall. Papers were spread across the table, each one a weapon against years of deceit. Daniel was already there, reviewing financial trails and legal strategies. "Ethan isn't giving up," he said without looking up. "Expect him to try something reckless. But now, he's in unfamiliar territory. He has no control over you, and that frustrates him." Lily nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. "Then let's make sure he never regains it." As we went through the documents, Margaret's fingers flew across the keyboard. "I've traced several attempts to access Lily's accounts remotely. Ethan has been monitoring her finances and communications for months." I felt a cold pit in my stomach. "So even after the filing, he's still trying to manipulate her?" Margaret nodded grimly. "Yes, but he's sloppy. These attempts leave digital fingerprints. That's what we'll use to prove ongoing harassment and fraud." Lily swallowed hard. "He thought he could erase everything. My life, my choices, my trust. But we're proving he's the liar." By mid-afternoon, Daniel had arranged a strategy meeting for the next day with the court-appointed mediator. "We'll lay out the evidence in stages," he explained. "The trust, the forged documents, the emails, each one tied directly to him. He will have no plausible defense." Lily listened intently, nodding. "We're not just defending ourselves," she said softly. "We're reclaiming everything he tried to take from me." I smiled at her, pride swelling. "Yes, darling. And this time, it's not fear guiding us. It's truth." That evening, a message arrived on Lily's phone, causing her to stiffen. The text was short, almost clinical. "Stop or face consequences." Her hands trembled slightly. I took the phone, my blood running cold. "He's still trying to scare you," I said. "But he doesn't know we have backup. He doesn't know we're ready." Lily looked at me, eyes brimming with tears. "I don't want to be afraid anymore, Mom." I hugged her tightly. "Then you won't be. Not again." In that moment, I realized something important. The fear he had instilled for years no longer had power over her. The next day at the mediator's office, Ethan arrived calm and composed on the surface, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed him. He greeted the mediator politely, casting a brief glance at Lily, who held her head high. Daniel handed over the first set of documents, the trust, followed by the forged messages, carefully organized and annotated. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. He maintained his practiced smile, but the flicker of doubt in his expression was unmistakable. The mediator looked between the two sides, her expression unreadable, waiting for the confrontation to unfold. Lily was called to testify first. She stood, her posture strong, her voice clear, recounting every lie, every manipulation, every moment she had been coerced. Ethan's lawyers tried to interrupt, but Daniel held firm, objecting to every attempt to dismiss her claims. I watched from the side, my heart pounding, as my daughter transformed before my eyes, from a frightened, isolated woman into someone commanding her truth. Every word she spoke chipped away at the carefully constructed image Ethan had built over years. She was reclaiming herself, and I felt tears of pride and relief sting my eyes. When my turn came, I described Ethan's manipulations, his threats, and the forged documents I had discovered. He created a world of lies, attempting to isolate my daughter, distort reality, and control her life, I said firmly. But here is the evidence, undeniable, traceable, and documented. She is not powerless. And neither am I. Ethan shifted slightly, his composure cracking under the weight of our united testimony. The mediator's eyes narrowed thoughtfully as she took in the documents, her pen poised to make notes. For the first time, I sensed a change in the room. The scales were beginning to tip. By late afternoon, the mediator asked for a recess to review the evidence. Outside the office, Lily and I held hands tightly. "Mom," she whispered, "I feel like I can finally breathe again. Like the weight has lifted a little." I smiled, squeezing her hand. "It's the beginning, darling. He's lost control and we've found our voice." She nodded, a tentative smile breaking through her worry. "I've spent so long afraid. Afraid of him, afraid of losing everything. But now," her words trailed off, replaced by a sense of quiet determination. "Now I'm not." The recess felt interminable, every passing minute stretching like hours. Finally, the mediator called both sides back in. Ethan entered with forced composure, his eyes darting toward the documents on our side of the table. Daniel laid out the case methodically, presenting the forged emails, financial records, and metadata as a timeline that could not be ignored. Ethan's lawyers tried to argue manipulation on Lily's part, but each claim was dismantled with facts, evidence, and sworn testimony. I could feel the tension radiating off him, the mask of control slipping, his confidence shaken. By the end of the day, the mediator issued a temporary ruling. Lily was granted full control over her finances and access to the trust, with strict limitations on Ethan's communication and contact. The relief that washed over us was overwhelming. Lily hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, we did it," she whispered. "We really did it." I held her close, feeling a wave of protection and pride. "Yes, darling. But this is just the beginning. Justice isn't over yet, but we've reclaimed our power." That night, we returned to Margaret's office to debrief and plan next steps. Daniel emphasized that Ethan would likely escalate, attempting to regain control through legal maneuvers or intimidation. "But now we have a clear path forward," he said. "The evidence is solid and Lily's testimony is powerful. He can't undo what we've built today." Lily looked at me, determination blazing in her eyes. "Then we continue. No fear, no hesitation. This is my life, and I won't let him take it again." I nodded, feeling a surge of hope. Together, we were unstoppable. As we left the office and stepped into the quiet evening streets, I glanced at Lily. The city lights reflected in her eyes, showing not just fear but resilience, courage, and the first glimmers of freedom. For the first time in years, she smiled without hesitation. I knew the fight wasn't over, that Ethan would make desperate moves to regain control. But for the first time, I also knew he was facing a force he could not manipulate. A mother and daughter united by truth, courage, and unbreakable love. And this time, victory was within reach. The morning was heavy with anticipation, the city streets strangely quiet as if holding its breath. Lily and I arrived at Margaret's office early. The files from yesterday still spread across the table, their contents a roadmap of Ethan's lies. Daniel was already reviewing new digital logs Margaret had uncovered overnight. "He's desperate," he said, his voice low but firm. "These new attempts to access Lily's accounts show someone trying to cover tracks, someone afraid of exposure." I exchanged a glance with Lily. Her jaw was set, eyes steely. "Then we're ready," she whispered. "We can't let him slip away now." As the hours passed, we pieced together the latest attempts Ethan had made: phantom emails, digital redirects, and even attempts to manipulate bank transfers. Margaret pointed out small inconsistencies he had overlooked, footprints that would be irrefutable in court. "Every attempt he made to intimidate or coerce you leaves a trail," she said. "And he's sloppy because he's panicked." Lily leaned forward, eyes wide. "So all these little actions, they work in our favor?" Margaret smiled faintly. "Exactly. Panic exposes more than confidence ever could." By afternoon, Daniel had prepared a motion to submit to the court, highlighting Ethan's recent attempts at harassment and fraud. "This strengthens our case considerably," he said, tapping the printed documents. The more aggressive he becomes, the clearer his intent and the stronger your position. Lily's hands trembled slightly as she signed the motion. I never imagined standing up to him would feel like this, she whispered. Scary, but also powerful. I squeezed her hand. That's because it's truth, darling. Fear can't survive against what's real. Later, as we left Margaret's office to grab a quick bite, Lily's phone buzzed. I felt my pulse quicken. She read the message and paled. It's Ethan, she murmured. The text was short. Stop this now or you'll regret every move you've made. I could feel the tension tighten in the air. Ignore it, I said firmly. It's exactly what we expected. Intimidation. But we've already anticipated this and we won't let him control you. Lily nodded, drawing strength from my words. For the first time, the threat didn't feel paralyzing. It felt like confirmation that our actions were working. The next day, the court session began earlier than expected. Ethan appeared with a carefully constructed mask of calm, but Daniel immediately noted the subtle cracks in his demeanor. When the judge called for both sides to present new evidence, Daniel laid out the motion detailing Ethan's recent attempts to manipulate, harass, and intimidate Lily. Ethan's lawyers tried to counter with vague claims about her emotional instability, but each assertion was dismantled by precise logs, emails, and timestamps. Lily's testimony this time was more composed, more assertive, recounting every detail of harassment she had endured since our last court visit. During a recess, Ethan's body language betrayed his frustration. I watched him pace behind the courtroom doors, jaw tight, hands fidgeting. He's desperate, Daniel murmured. He knows he's losing control. Margaret, sitting beside Lily and me, nodded. That's when people make mistakes, when they think they can outsmart evidence. And he has no idea how well prepared we are. Lily's face hardened, determination replacing fear. Then let's make sure he doesn't get another chance. I squeezed her hand. That's the plan, darling. One careful step at a time. After the recess, the mediator returned with a preliminary ruling. Ethan was prohibited from accessing any of Lily's accounts, communications, or the trust for the duration of the proceedings. The relief that washed over us was immediate and profound, yet tempered by the knowledge that this wasn't the final battle. Ethan's smirk, barely concealed, told me he was already plotting his next move. I glanced at Lily. The fight's far from over, I whispered. But we've drawn the line. He cannot cross it. She nodded, a sense of pride mingled with lingering anxiety in her eyes. That night, we returned to Margaret's apartment, exhausted but resolute. Lily sat at the window, staring at the street below as though expecting Ethan to appear at any moment. I joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. You've done more than most people could ever imagine, I said softly. You faced him, you spoke your truth, and you reclaimed control. She leaned into me. I feel alive, Mom. For the first time in years, I feel like I belong to myself again. I hugged her tightly, savoring the moment of peace before the next storm inevitably came. The following morning, a delivery arrived at Margaret's office, a package with no return address. I opened it cautiously, finding a USB stick inside. The label read, "For you, if you want to know the truth." My stomach tightened. Do you think it's him? Lily asked nervously. I shook my head. Maybe it's someone who finally wants the truth exposed. Either way, we'll see what's inside carefully. Daniel plugged it into a secure laptop, scanning the contents. Inside were dozens of documents, bank transfers, internal emails, and even notes from meetings Ethan had thought were private. Our hearts raced. This is it, Daniel said. This is the proof we need to finally link him to all the fraud. Hours later, as we reviewed the files, Lily's eyes widened. This is everything, she whispered. He thought he was untouchable, but he left a trail everywhere. I nodded, feeling a mixture of triumph and relief. And now we can use it, carefully, strategically, to end this once and for all. Daniel smiled, his eyes gleaming with cautious optimism. Exactly. Timing is everything. We don't act too soon, and we don't hesitate when the moment comes. He will not recover from this. Lily looked at me, a fire burning in her gaze. Then we're ready. Let's finish it. That night, as we prepared our strategy for the next court session, a sense of calm determination settled over us. Ethan had made desperate moves, but every step had left evidence. Every threat, every attempt at control had strengthened our case. I looked at Lily, remembering the frightened girl who had once hidden from him, the woman who now sat beside me, fearless and resolute. "You're incredible, darling," I whispered. He underestimated the wrong people. She smiled faintly, determination etched across her features. "And he will learn that truth cannot be silenced." The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, but it brought no warmth, only the tense anticipation of the day ahead. Lily and I arrived at Margaret's office, the USB from the previous night placed carefully in Daniel's hands. "We'll need to verify every document before presenting it to the court," he said, his voice calm but firm. "If we rush, he could try to discredit it." Lily nodded, her fingers brushing mine. "Then we prepare meticulously. No mistakes." I could feel the tension coil around my chest, but beneath it, a spark of hope. This evidence was our key, the proof Ethan could never refute. Hours passed as we pored over the documents, cross-referencing emails, bank transfers, and internal memos. Margaret's fingers flew across the keyboard, decrypting what needed to be decrypted, validating what could be validated. "He thought he was clever," she said, shaking her head. "But arrogance always leaves traces. Every manipulation, every lie, and it's all here." Lily leaned back, a mix of awe and vindication in her eyes. "So he built his own downfall?" I smiled, a quiet satisfaction settling over me. "Yes, darling. The truth has a way of catching up, even with the smartest liars." By mid-afternoon, Daniel had prepared the final motion, integrating the USB files into a coherent narrative of fraud, manipulation, and coercion. "This," he said, "is the culmination of years of deception, and the moment where he will finally be held accountable." Lily reviewed the motion, reading each page carefully. Her hands were steady now, her face set with determination. "It's time," she whispered. "Time he understands he can't control me anymore." I nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and apprehension. Today, the battle would reach its climax. When we entered the courthouse, Ethan was already waiting, flanked by his legal team. His smile was sharp, carefully constructed, but there was a tension beneath it I hadn't seen before. Daniel handed the judge the final motion, detailing every act of coercion, fraud, and financial manipulation. Lily's testimony, now seasoned with months of evidence and experience, was compelling. She recounted each moment with clarity, courage, and undeniable authority. The courtroom was silent, the weight of her words leaving a mark that no argument could erase. During a brief recess, Ethan's body language betrayed his frustration. He paced, muttering under his breath while his lawyers scrambled to adjust. I watched from a distance, noticing the subtle signs, the tightening of fists, the uneven breathing. "He's desperate," Daniel murmured. "And desperation makes people reckless," Margaret nodded. "But he's also exposed. Every action he takes from this point is traceable. We're no longer chasing shadows." Lily glanced at me, determination burning in her eyes. "Then we continue. No hesitation." I squeezed her hand. "Exactly, darling. The truth is on our side." After the recess, the judge called both sides to present their evidence fully. Daniel began with the trust documents, followed by the digital logs, emails, and financial records. Ethan's lawyers attempted to argue that the documents were manipulated or taken out of context, but Daniel anticipated every objection, countering with verified metadata and cross-references. Lily spoke confidently, recounting her experiences with clarity and emotional resonance. The courtroom absorbed every word. Every eye followed her, and even Ethan's composure faltered as the undeniable truth emerged. By late afternoon, the final piece of evidence, the USB, was submitted. Each document, email, and financial record was connected with meticulous precision, showing Ethan's intent and actions over the years. The judge reviewed it carefully, occasionally glancing at Ethan, whose composure was visibly cracking. For the first time, I saw the veneer of control shatter. The man who had tormented my daughter for years was reduced to a cornered figure, confronted by the reality he had created. Lily watched, her face pale but resolute. This was the moment we had been building toward. The mediator asked for closing statements, and Daniel spoke with unwavering authority. This case is not just about legal ownership or financial manipulation. It is about control, coercion, and the destruction of trust. The evidence is clear, undeniable, and meticulously documented. The court must act to protect the victim, restore her autonomy, and ensure justice is served. Ethan's lawyers were left speechless, unable to counter the clarity of the evidence. I felt a surge of relief and pride, seeing the power of truth standing stronger than any lie. Finally, the judge delivered a preliminary ruling. Ethan was stripped of all access to the trust, communications, and accounts. Any attempt to interfere would result in immediate legal consequences, including potential criminal charges. Lily's relief was palpable. Tears streamed down her face as she hugged me tightly. "Mom, it's over," she whispered, her voice shaking but victorious. I held her close, feeling the culmination of months of fear, preparation, and courage. "No, darling, it's not just over and it's reclaimed. Your life, your independence, your truth." After the ruling, we returned to Margaret's office to debrief and plan the final steps. Daniel emphasized that Ethan might attempt further legal maneuvers, but his options were now severely limited. "The evidence is comprehensive," he said. "Every lie, every act of coercion, every manipulation, it's all on record. He cannot rebuild control." Lily sat quietly, absorbing the weight of their words. "I feel alive, Mom," she said softly, "like I can finally breathe without looking over my shoulder." I smiled, relief and pride mingling in my chest. "And you will, darling. This is your life now." That night, as we sat in the apartment reflecting on the journey, I realized how far we had come. From fear and isolation to courage and triumph, every step had brought us closer to justice. Ethan's desperation had been our roadmap, his arrogance our undoing. And the bond between Lily and me, strengthened through shared struggle, had proven unbreakable. "We did it, Mom," Lily said softly, leaning against me. "Together." I kissed her forehead. "Yes, darling. Always together, and always on the side of truth." As the city lights glimmered outside the window, I thought about the months of deception, fear, and manipulation that had once overshadowed our lives. Now, for the first time, we could see a horizon of freedom and peace. Ethan had underestimated the power of truth, the resilience of a mother and daughter united, and the justice that comes when courage meets preparation. Lily's smile, genuine and unburdened, told me everything we had fought for, autonomy, safety, and the restoration of a stolen life, was finally within reach. The morning air was crisp, carrying the promise of finality. Lily and I walked into the courthouse, our footsteps echoing in the empty hall like the rhythm of determination. Today would mark the conclusion of a battle that had haunted us for years. Ethan was already present, flanked by his lawyers, trying to maintain composure that had long since worn thin. I could see the tension in his eyes, the mask of arrogance slipping away with every heartbeat. Lily squeezed my hand, her own resolve firm and unwavering. "We're ready," she whispered. I nodded. "Together, always." As the hearing began, Daniel presented the final compilation of evidence, the culmination of months of meticulous preparation. Every forged email, every altered document, every manipulated bank record was laid bare before the court. Ethan's lawyers attempted desperate objections, claiming technicalities or misinterpretations, but Daniel dismantled each argument with precision. The courtroom fell silent as the truth unfolded, undeniable and irrefutable. Lily's testimony punctuated each revelation, her voice strong and clear, leaving no room for doubt. For the first time, Ethan's control had no foothold. During a brief recess, I watched Ethan retreat to the side room, his face pale, jaw tight. The realization that his years of manipulation were crumbling was evident. Margaret leaned close to me, whispering, "He's cornered. Every move he makes now is desperate, and desperate people leave evidence." Lily exhaled slowly, a mix of relief and determination in her eyes. "Then let's make sure he can't recover," she said. I hugged her tightly, feeling the culmination of months of fear, courage, and preparation converging in this single moment. The storm that had haunted our lives was finally breaking. When the session resumed, the judge reviewed the final documents and testimonies. The gravity of Ethan's actions became undeniable, a pattern of fraud, coercion, and manipulation that had impacted every facet of Lily's life. The ruling was decisive. Ethan was permanently stripped of all access to the trust, finances, and communications. Any attempts to interfere would result in immediate legal consequences. Justice, long delayed, had finally arrived. Lily's hands shook slightly as the ruling was read, but her eyes shone with triumph. "It's done, Mom," she whispered. "He can't hurt me anymore." Outside the courthouse, a wave of relief washed over us. Lily hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face, a mixture of exhaustion, triumph, and liberation. "I feel like I can finally breathe," she said, her voice trembling. I held her close, feeling her strength and resilience radiate. "You can, darling. And you always will. This is your life now, free, unburdened, and fully yours." Margaret and Daniel joined us, their smiles quiet but knowing. Together we had navigated the labyrinth of lies, and truth had prevailed. Ethan's attempts to control, manipulate, and intimidate had been shattered completely. That evening, we returned to the apartment, the city lights twinkling like silent witnesses to our victory. Lily sat on the sofa, clutching the notarized trust document, her eyes soft but determined. "Mom," she whispered, "I finally feel like I own my life." I kissed her forehead gently, feeling a mixture of pride, relief, and gratitude. "You do, darling. Every step, every fight, every fear has led to this. You've reclaimed what was always yours." She smiled faintly, a sense of peace settling over her. For the first time in years, the shadow that Ethan had cast over our lives no longer loomed. In the days that followed, we worked to secure the trust formally, ensuring Ethan had no possibility of interference. Daniel coordinated with financial institutions and legal authorities, leaving nothing to chance. Every detail was accounted for, a final safeguard against future manipulation. Lily grew stronger with each passing day, reclaiming autonomy and control she had been denied for so long. I watched her rebuild her life with pride and awe, knowing the strength she displayed was born of courage, truth, and resilience. One afternoon, as we walked through the park near our apartment, Lily paused, looking up at the sky. "Mom," she said softly, "I never imagined we'd get here. That I'd feel whole again." I took her hand, squeezing it gently. "You are whole, darling. And you always were, even when fear tried to hide it. The truth was always inside you, and now the world finally sees it too." She smiled, a fragile but genuine expression, and I felt the weight of years of anxiety, fear, and uncertainty lift from my chest. For the first time, we could simply breathe. That night, we gathered in the living room, recounting the months of struggle and triumph. Every obstacle, every fear, every manipulation had been met with courage, preparation, and unwavering determination. Lily leaned against me, exhausted but peaceful. "Mom, I've learned so much about strength and truth," she whispered. "And I've learned that love, real love, doesn't control. It supports, protects, and trusts." I hugged her, tears streaming down my face. "Yes, darling. That is the most important lesson of all, and you've embodied it perfectly." As we sat together in the quiet, I reflected on the journey we had endured. From fear and isolation to empowerment and justice, Every step had been a testament to the unbreakable bond between a mother and daughter. Ethan's arrogance, manipulation, and control had been formidable, but love, courage, and truth had proven stronger. The city outside our window sparkled, indifferent yet beautiful, a silent witness to our triumph. Lily's laughter, soft and genuine, filled the room, signaling not just victory over Ethan, but a reclaiming of life, joy, and freedom. In the following weeks, Lily began to rebuild her life fully, reconnecting with friends, pursuing personal goals, and regaining the independence she had been denied for so long. I watched her with pride, knowing the scars of the past would fade with time, replaced by resilience and self-assurance. Our bond, strengthened through adversity, remained unbreakable. The memory of fear and manipulation served only as a reminder of the power of courage, preparation, and truth. We had endured the storm, and now the sun shone brightly on the horizon of our lives. Finally, one quiet evening, as we sat on the balcony overlooking the city, Lily turned to me, her eyes soft and reflective. "Mom," she said, "I feel free. Not just from him, but from everything that held me back. I feel like myself again." I smiled, squeezing her hand. "You are yourself, darling. Stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. And nothing, no one, can take that from you." We sat in silence for a while, the city lights twinkling below, the weight of the past finally lifting. The battle had ended, justice had been served, and a mother and daughter had reclaimed their lives together. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love reading your thoughts.